Yes, we also have apologies from Councillor Hamilton, Councillor James and Councillor Kanji.
And could we have a proposer to accept that, please? Thank you, Michael. Second. And can we have a show of hands, please?
I make that unanimous, Chair.
Yes. Right. Do we have any declarations of interest?
We've had none pre-notified and no dispensations have been requested, Chair.
Thank you. And can we, does everyone agree with minutes of the last meeting?
Last
Two meetings,
Two
sorry,
meetings.
yes, that's right. Yeah. Proposer, please. Thank you.
to Councillor Gray.
And a seconder? Thank you. Right, can we have a show of hands, please?
So this is for both together, isn't
Yes,
it?
this is both of them.
And I make that unanimous.
We've got any, well, we haven't received any councillor questions in advance, so I take it there are none. Oh, there we are, councillor Bray has.
Thank you, Mayor. I just, it's a statement really. I just wanted to comment on the Veterans Day parade, because I thought from a town point of view, I mean, it's the first one I've been all the way through to the end, including going to the pavilion. So in not any particular order, I think we need to thank Charlie because it went really well. And those of you who know, it's the first time Charlie's done it solo, so I think that's to be commended. It seemed to go really smoothly. Thank you to you, because the knees up and down all the time on those, you know, I feel for you. Is it Stuart, the
Yes.
ceremonial Stuart? I thought he did a good job wearing that kit all day, so it was quite warm. And Councillor James and all those people that were involved, I thought it was a really showed off Weymouth really well. And I thought it went really, the day went and everybody was happy in the pavilion. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could we have that minute? Oh, now we come to my announcements. I've forgotten my reading glasses, so I'm going to have to look with my seeing glasses. Right. I went to the Northfort and Artway exhibition. We gave a community grant. That was very good. Seemed better than last year. I was quite impressed with that. And then the community picnic. Sorry. The first time it was raining, so we put it off to the following week. But Tia and I and Town Clerk were there, and yeah, so that was quite good. And then the Civic Society Annual Awards presentation, very good. All the businesses and architects and everybody, they were all, I don't know, yeah, good. Right, and oh yes, the launch of the public sculpture trail. I love that. The only thing I couldn't see was under the bridge where you look through and see the waves. Everybody else could see it, so perhaps it was just me.
You didn't have your glasses on.
You got the wrong glasses on.
And the US Memorial, that was good. Yes. And then the chappie who's walking, Ryan, who's walking with the club for, he was really nice. And he was so thrilled that we acknowledged him, took him some badges. And so that was a lovely morning. The Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration service. Oh, wow. Yeah, brilliant. That was really good. Then we had the Jubilee beacon lighting. Military wives sang, the Decadettes, of course. And we had some lovely fireworks afterwards. That was at the Northfort. The only thing I didn't like was when the cannon goes off, but I never do. And the Dorset Civic Service for the Queen. Oh, that was lovely. We were at the Abbey, that was really, really nice. All the choir boys and the children, every really good day. Then Trusting in the Waves, that was very instructive. And they sent me a badge. And then the Veterans Weekend, what can I say? My favourite weekend of the year. And it was lovely to see all the veterans. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. Are there any questions from the public, please?
Yes.
Oh, hang on, we've just got, Chair, we have Mrs. Birchall with us who wishes to ask a question.
I would just like to know, is it now carte blanche for restaurants and cafes to take over the pavements in town? It started, well, I mean, it's a proliferation. Enzo's, you're actually on what was the highway now, and now it's onto the Esplanade. I'm sorry, but I don't think this is a good idea. On Friday, as I walked along, there were two ladies pushing their children pushchairs. There was a mobility scooter and a cyclist, and everybody thought, well, where do I go? And you all know where I'm talking about, I'm quite sure. Is it carte blanche? I can remember the days when one was threatened with court for putting out an A-board. Now, put your chairs and tables out, fill your boots. Whatever you want to do, you do it. And I would like to know if these people have to get permission, and if they do have to get permission, who's granted it, and have they actually listened to what the public feel about it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to comment?
Charmaine?
Please answer that.
Thank you. I can only comment on the Weymouth Town Council land, which we refer to as Esplanade. Recently, a business approached the council about trialling this extended seating in this particular area. Members and officers approved this trial, and members and officers agreed that this will run until the end of June, so next Thursday. It's for one particular area only. Next week, members of the Income Generation Group will review the feedback received during the trial period, and a decision will be made on whether the seafront seating scheme will proceed. If it does proceed, then a paper will be taken to Finance and Governance Committee, and all businesses will have an opportunity to bid for this site. But that is only in regard to the promenade seating. With regards to end zones and other areas, that would be Dorset Council licensing.
Although it's the pavement they've taken over.
Yes, Town
Yes,
Clerk, please.
so Dorset Council are responsible for sitting out licences on highways land, and the highways land includes any pavements. So if you're talking the quayside or down the Esplanade itself, that all relates to sitting out licences which are granted by Dorset Council, and all businesses have to apply to Dorset Council to have that. Charmaine is quite correct, the Assistant Town Clerk is quite correct, that there's only that 1-2 week trial on Town Council land, and we will be feeding back to councillors about that.
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yes, please.
Will the trial be whether it was profitable for the business, or whether it will work in terms of people walking on and using the Esplanade as it's supposed to be used?
All information will be taken into account, and the members of the Income Generation Group are here, and Charmaine sits on that group as well. So they've heard your feedback, and so that will be taken into account, along with all other feedback we've got, information from the business, information from ourselves as council. It will all be taken into account. But then, as Charmaine correctly said, it will come before one of the committees for a policy decision.
And the public will be able to have a say.
It will be public papers, yeah, but if anyone is watching on YouTube and has any views, please do let us know. You can email us at office@weymouthtowncouncil.gov.uk, or feedback through our Facebook page, our YouTube page, our Twitter account, or directly on our website. There is a tab you can click on to send feedback to us. So I would encourage anyone who has any feedback on any council services to let us know, because we don't know what we're not told. So we'd much rather people told us any feedback they want us to hear.
And can I just say, obviously the exacerbation of the awful traffic problems we have along that stretch of the Esplanade will be taken into account? Will we have to wait while a man takes his tray of drinks across?
I can't, I mean, that will all be included. I can't comment on the
No.
highways issue, on
No.
the traffic issues, because that is a Dorset Council issue, the traffic on the Esplanade. We're only responsible for the prom, not the Esplanade itself.
So the prom, the Esplanade, is not the prom?
No, the prom is the bit you walk on, the Esplanade is the road.
Yeah, yes, but the one that's just gone up is on the prom. isn't it?
Yes,
And so.
and that is the one that is the town council, the only sitting out area that is the town council.
And that's only a trial.
Pardon?
That's only been a trial, which we're discussing next week.
Yeah, I would just like to know what the criteria is for whether it's a success or not.
It will be something that's determined by the working group, which will feed into a paper that will be heard in public at a committee meeting. So that decision will be taken in public and the papers will all be available on our website.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholas, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There has been some, I know there's been some emails and discussion around this. Bearing in mind the feelings this lady has, I do feel that this should be a recommendation that comes from the committee. The final decision should be taken by full council rather than just a committee.
Thank you. Mr. Farr.
Here, right, on the Remembrance Day, Veterans Day, was there any scouts or anybody there like there are on Remembrance Day or not?
Yes, we had the Boys
Because
Brigade.
me and the boys arranged them a long time ago.
Sorry?
I see we got the chairman of the, I asked it because I know we got quite a high up level of the scouts department here.
Well, everybody turned out and there was lots of children that went past in different little uniforms, whether they were scouts or boys brigade or what, I don't know. But, sorry? Oh, yeah. And it's up to them whether they turn up or not. But as far as I'm concerned, I thought they did.
I hope they did.
Perhaps I had the wrong glasses on the day.
It took us a long time to get them up there. Allowed to go up there.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Right, moving on, we have got the internal audit report and I'd like to hand over to Ian Milne, please.
Thank you, Chair. The next four items are all in respect of the year-end position of the council for the 2021-22 financial year. The first three, the internal audit report, the governance return and the accounting statements all form part of the AGAR, as we call it, which is the set of accounts which we need to complete and submit to our external auditors for inspection, which we'll do after this meeting. The first item, Chair, is in respect, as you quite rightly say, the internal audit report. Appendix A outlines the report which has been presented to us from our internal auditors. The internal auditors members may recall they are different this year than they were in the previous 2 years due to the unavailability of the auditors which we did have, which was provided by SWAT. I'm pleased to say that the audit report itself has given us a clean bill of health, which is satisfying because it's another set of eyes, not just the same auditors having a look at the same things. Page 3 of the internal auditors report, which is Appendix A, outlines the areas which they inspected, and it also outlines a list of the things which they class as good practice. As you would expect, there's a couple of minor recommendations which we have noted and included on the report, and we're already looking at those and putting things in place so that we comply with the recommendations made by the internal.
Thank you. Now, have we got any questions? Sorry. No? Right. Now we move on to the approval of the annex. Oh, the recommendation, sorry.
Can I move the recommendation? Yeah.
Right, proposed by councillor Harris, thank you, councillor Weller, seconded. Can we have a show of hands, please?
That is unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
And once again, I'm going to hand over to Ian Mill, who will, for the approval of the annual governance statement.
Thank you, Chair. So section 1 of the our return relates to the annual governance statement, and it relates to all of the governance arrangements of the council, not just finance, but also ensures that we comply with laws, regulations and proper practices. We undertake a review, myself and the town clerk is responsible finance officer and deputy responsible finance officer. We work our way through the assertions to make sure that we do comply with all of the requirements of the annual governance statement. And if agreed tonight, Chair, then we will require yourself and the town clerk to sign the annual governance statement.
Questions?
Um,
Oh, yes. Yes, councillor Norton.
Thank you, Chair. I just noticed that on the bottom of the page of the appendix, it says page 4 of 6, which seems an odd thing to have on a single page. I guess it's because it's part of another document, but it sort of implies, is there another page?
Just come back on that, Chair, if I may. Well spotted, Councillor Morgan. It's one of those things, the annual governance return is made up of 6 pages, as you quite rightly say. There is a requirement under town and parish council regulations that we have to take each section in turn and to get those approved in turn rather than taking the document as a whole. So pages 1 and 2 will be an introduction. We've got the section 1, which is the annual governance statement, which we need to approve before the annual accounting statements, which will be.
Thank you for the explanation.
And oh, councillor Harris.
Moving the recommendation,
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
Seconder, please. Councillor Weller. Thank you. Show of hands.
So I make that 22 votes for.
No,
Oh,
very good.
no, unanimous.
Thank you.
We just get that signed. Oh, Chair, if I may, which we just need to do it here, if you can sign that.
And am I doing underneath?
I could see it. Right, so now we move on to. Item 10, full council approve the annual accounting statements for the year ending 31st of March and the governance accountability return and the annual statement be signed by the chairman at this meeting. Just done.
This is the same. This is
Oh,
another
this is
one.
one.
Looks almost the same, but
Right.
it's like.
Okay.
So if I may, Chair, this is section 2 of the annual return, which we are required to complete. And again, if approved, then it will just need to be signed by yourself when we get to the recommendation. The outturn position was considered at the Finance and Governance Committee, and hopefully this full council meeting will be able to take some reassurance if it's been scrutinised by that committee. The underspend for the financial year, which we'll also touch on, is in the next item when we allocate the reserves, is just over £314,000. Just a couple of things to note on that underspend. It's one of the quirks, which I say every year, of town and parish finance, that we do budget for an underspend because we need to plan for future events and we are governed by different financial regulations in organisations such as districts and boroughs, which most of our members would have been used to seeing before we became a town and parish. And I think I'd also like to note that as part of the budget process which we've just undertaken, some of the areas which contributed to that underspend will have already been adjusted and amended. So these underspends will in part be one-off just for the 2021-22 financial year, Chair. The appendices which show section 2 will show that the actual accounting statements which we have to return is quite a simplistic document compared to the pages which members, certainly of the unitary authorities, I used to see, which run into the 90s or hundreds of pages. But that is a document which we need to sign today. And if I may, Chair, I'll just probably pass over to Councillor Gray if I could, just
Yes.
the finance, Chairman of Finance and Governance Committee.
Yeah, thank you. According to the paper today, Dorset's the happiest place in the country. You wouldn't think so, listening to this, when you, but this makes me very happy. I think my only comment in is the one I made at F&G, which is we're 3 years dead now into this term, and each year we've A, generated an unspent, B, the financial reserve position is very healthy, and if you look at the appendix 10 or F, you can see the total cash value there. So we're very stable financially. And I had a very long conversation with Councillor Nicholson this afternoon where we were lamenting the fact that inflation is going to hit double digit, wage rises are going to be tough this year. So for us to go into some choppy waters for the next 2 years in the firm knowledge that the finance team, F&G and the council have got a very firm hand on the framework for finances. So we're in good shape. We've got some things we need to bottom out, particularly around forecasting. We've got saving to deliver that we voted for this year. But I think it's a good position to be in, but we've got to keep a weather eye. So my thanks go to Ian and his small team for producing the numbers. 2 different auditors over the 3 years have given us the green light, and everybody should be proud of that, because whilst it's boring or dry, as my friends have next to me, very dry, it's necessary and means that we can, talk about those exciting things of delivering things for residents. So thanks. That's all I've got to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, so are there any questions, please?
Chair, can I just say, can we just record a vote of thanks to Ian and his team for the work he's done and continues to do for this whole bit.
Thank you. Is there a proposal? Oh, thank you, Councillor Hope. Second, Councillor Rock, yeah. Right, can we have a show of hands, please?
So this is for a favour. Thank you, that's unanimous, Chair.
Right, next, sorry, no, the light away. You have exactly I couldn't read it.
Right.
Sorry. Now we move on to item 11, which is earmarked reserves, and I'll hand over once again to Ian Milne, please.
Once again, Chair. So this item refers to earmarked reserves as at the year end, the 31st of March. Again, the recommendations for this item has been through Finance and Governance Committee, and the recommendations themselves do come from that committee. There are 3 things which we're asking from this report. The first one is to note the balance of reserves as at the 31st of March 2022, and members will see from the recommendation that the balance as at the 31st of March is just over £3 million. The exact figures there within the recommendation. The reserves which have already been allocated at previous council meetings, these were discussed at Governance Committee, and it was recommended that there was just some minor changes to those balances. Those are listed within the report, and in the main they are around the COVID budget support reserve just being renamed as a budget support reserve to ensure that we have some contingency in relation to items such as inflation. And we're also just asking that the two IT reserves be combined into the IT refresh reserve, which means that we won't have to allocate some of the underspend as we would normally do to allow us to refresh our IT infrastructure over the next couple of years. So the third element of this is a list of items that the Finance and Governance Committee recommended should be allocated to earmarked reserves, and those are listed there as well. So as part of this report, Chair, we're asking that the balance of the year end be noted, those minor changes to existing reserves be approved, and that the transfers to specific reserves funded from the underspend as per Appendix K be approved as well.
Thank you. Any questions, please? No, then can we move to agree the recommendation, please? Have I got the proposer? Thank you. Seconder? Yeah, thank you. And the show of hands.
That's unanimous, Chair. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Lloyd.
Well, release of reserves for seafront improvements.
Chairman.
Tony Hurley, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
5 million there.
Yeah, I'm Tony Hurley, I'm the Operations Manager. Although I'm presenting the report, I'm joined this evening by Paul Holmes, Resort Manager rather, and Charlotte Ryan, who's the Senior Resort Officer, and they are leading the Council's new resort team. So if there's any tricky questions, I will defer to them at the back. Last year, the Council allocated a sum of £80,000 in reserves to support improvements to the seafront. A key issue that needs to be addressed on the promenade is the condition of the historic metal railings. Earlier this year, £15,000 was released to enable a trial programme of works to be undertaken, and these have just been completed. This work gives us a better understanding of the approach that is needed. It is now proposed that an additional £25,000 is released from the reserve to enable replacement and refurbishment works of the railings in the area of the Jubilee Clock to be completed during the summer season without too much disruption and whilst the weather is ideal for the application of a specialist paint. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Gray.
Thanks, Tony. Just a couple of small questions, really. Have we checked the quality of the work yet?
Yes, we have been inspecting it as it's got along, and they've done an excellent job. They had some technical challenges that when the metal rails, which were rusted, were removed, the historic posts started to spring apart. So there's all manner, or twist. So there's all manner of things that we've had to address.
The question I had was really a technical one about the way they fix them to the posts, because it's changed, doesn't it? Are we happy with that? I'm just wondering, you know, they don't go all the way through there, they're bolted on the outside.
Yeah, for them to go all the way through the posts would be extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're happy, and the other question I had is, at this age of technology, can we not find a paint that doesn't have to be applied in the high season? Because whilst there's minor, it just doesn't look good. I mean, that's sort of quite an area. I understand they need to do it while it's in the summer, but can we not? I'm sure that other countries use paint that is not used in the summer. I just wondered whether we
have sought advice on it, and the paint is called an alkalite paint, and it does need to be applied in optimum conditions to give a very long life. It's a technical challenge, but it's the best time of year to apply the paint, unfortunately. And it will be a greater challenge as we move further down the seafront.
It will do, because there's obviously less room. So
yeah.
And the ones right down the other end, on the pavilion end, are really bad, aren't they?
They, I think, within the remit of a harbour master. But as we get beyond the mine steps, as you go further down towards the pleasure.
There's no budget for that in the harbour's budget.
I couldn't comment.
Okay, thanks, Tony. It does look good, and the way they stripping back those columns was good, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Thurman, please.
Thanks, Tony. So just just a few questions. In terms of the longevity of the material and kind of repainting, what's the prediction on how often we'll have to go back and
So the contractor said 7 years on repainting.
Okay. Were there any, oh, sorry, did you want to answer that one?
No, that's fine. It is an issue, but we'll have to, it's like the bridge. Yeah.
Were there any permissions on the, as a as a heritage feature in terms of what we could replace with or what materials we could use?
No, we kept it like for like. Although it's in a conservation area, or probably on the very edge of a conservation area, we've kept it like for like, and we've tried to keep as many of the original posts as possible, and they've been stripped down. It's the rails which are, say to us, why are we painting rust on the old rails? But having cut through some of the rails, they are entirely rust. So there will be no point in stripping them.
And have you got good oversight of how many posts we're going to need to replace? Because I noticed in the text there it was quite expensive to replace those posts.
Yeah, we are
that's
trying to
factored
keep
within the
posts,
25,000.
even the posts from in. We have a small stock of cast posts, which I think were cast at Bridport Foundry. But wherever possible, we're just stripping and grinding down the original posts to reveal the features which are being disguised by years of paint. So we're trying to keep as many posts as possible to keep the costs down.
Great, thank you.
But one of the challenges is the rising cost of steel.
Sure.
Councillor Weller, please.
Following on from Councillor Furman's question about heritage and so on, I'm coming from another angle really. I love the railings and I think they look great, but they are new. There weren't railings there before. And I'm just wondering, particularly since the sand level is now much higher than it was in my childhood, where if you fell off the prom, you fell quite a long way. You don't, this is a health and safety issue, I guess I'm immediately coming into, but if you fell off the prom now, you wouldn't fall nearly as far. And I'm just wondering whether we actually have to replace the railings, because if, in conservation terms, if we're being really, really strict, there weren't any railings there. Perhaps we should go back to that time and save ourselves an awful lot of money and work. And I'm just wondering what conservation officers would say if we said we'd like to go back to its original iteration, which was no railings.
The only thing I would say is that we're, as part of the flood defences, every year we try and reduce the sand level before the winter down to at least 70 centimetres below the level of the pond. And that's a requirement from Dorset Council in order to provide an upright of the seaboard.
But that is considerably higher than it was when there were no railings. The sand is much higher now than it was 50 years ago. Perhaps I'm being facetious and I apologise, but I just wonder why we're having to do something which is new.
This is exactly the place to debate ideas like that. One thing I would say is that railings do also allow us to hang the scrim during the off season, which I think I apologise to Will and Charlotte and Tony for my lack of knowledge on seaside management, but that's to stop the sand flowing into the town, to help stop the sand making its way into town.
If I might say something, it would help if you secure the bottom parts rather than let them flap about.
But in the old days, of course, there was a hedge there which stopped it.
Well, I mean,
I'll stop looking backwards. I know Councillor Furman doesn't like me doing that.
Thank you, Chair.
Is it not possible to remove them a few at a time, take them away somewhere in a controlled environment, have them blasted, created, and then put them back in?
Well, we try and keep the posts, as many posts as possible, because they're expensive items, they're kept in situ. And we then, there's enamelling painting, I think, which applies to the steel, but then the final coat of paint is applied on site.
I wasn't suggesting get rid of them, I was just wondering whether it's possible to actually remove a post, take it away in a controlled environment indoors, blast it and paint it, and then put it back again. Do a few at a time like that.
I think you'd incur a lot more cost in terms of making them good wrong surface by digging them up.
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Holmes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. My first point has actually been pointed out by the town clerk around the benefits of the railings, especially in the winter, to attach the netting on to prevent as much sand staying on the beach, coming onto the esplanade as possible. So the town clerk's already taken that point.
My apologies.
Second of all, I trust that we have already gone out to tender and appointed the contractor and done all the right work to make sure that we've got the right contractor to do this work. And I'm just wondering, just want to know, are we using a local contractor to undertake the work? Because it's something to be proud of when you're doing public work like that to an historic part of the town. It's good to know that it's supporting local people and local people being involved in the project.
Well, we went out through a procurement process and we chose a Dorchester-based contractor. There's a lot of work in the area. I think some of his staff are locally based. And they've done an excellent job and they've learned a lot from the process, and they bent over backwards to get on very well with the local traders.
I think we can include Dorchester.
I think we've already spent a lot on the local economy.
It's there now.
Councillor Jordan, please.
I just wondered whether we should take notice, £25,000 that's being asked for the recommendation. Perhaps we should move to approve,
Thank you.
recommend approval.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Do-
not recommend, I propose.
Thank you. Do we have a second, please? Right, and show of hands?
I make that unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
It's getting boring, isn't it?
Sorry?
Getting boring.
I shall do my best for the next item.
Okay. Someone would like to come round and take my bath and we sit and watch the train drive, but anyway.
In summer.
Oh, now I come on to tumble down governance, and I'd like to ask the town clerk to speak on this, please.
Thank you, Chair. I know members present at the meeting and a lot of public watching will be aware of Tumbledown and exactly just how much amazing work has gone on there in recent years. It's changed from a rather underloved, underutilised, uncared for area into something that we can really be proud of as a council. And a lot of that has been down to the volunteers, the time given by councillors, and the work of dedicated officers who have really pushed that project forward. It's a real feather in our cap that's bringing some great benefits for local people, particularly those with learning disabilities or physical disabilities who are looking for activities to do locally, who can go and spend days up at Tumbledown learning about the land, learning about the forest, and helping with the food production. We've got community growing sites up there. Several local charities now work with their clients on growing food. And those of you who were lucky enough, like me, to have some of the veg boxes last year will know the quality, particularly of the onions. Chair, if I may refer to those again. And also I understand, Councillor Lambert, that food is being donated already this year to the Nest supermarket, which supports people in our community in need. So there is great work going on there, but from the time that we started this project, it is a very different project with very different needs and very different governance requirements. So the paper in front of you today is to update and refresh the governance arrangements. I won't take you through the detail of the paper. I know everyone will have an opportunity to read them, but what is being suggested is that the current project board is separated into a project group that monitors the progress against the agreed plans and reports back to the services committee to make sure that there is full member oversight of the project, and also to form the operational group, which will look at the more operational matters, the things that are happening on the ground. I've suggested in the report who should be a part of that, but that is something open to discussion, and it will mean that the project group can focus on the project plans, the strategic side, the budgeting, which will be very important going forward, and that the operational group can crack on making sure that it still delivers for local people and maximises the food production side of things. Happy to answer any questions, Chair, if there are any, or I'm aware that there are several councillors who are instrumental in the project.
If I could ask Councillor Roos, please.
I have to make a non-pecuniary interest because I work for one of the charities that uses Tumbledown. Although I try to distance myself from it as much as possible at work, I still have a conflict of interest.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Councillor Gray and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. My only comment, Town Clerk, is that from a strategic point of view, 5 councillors and 3 officers is too big a group. Is my own personal view. 8 people for a strategic group is too many, and I think probably 5 is enough. 8 is too many for us.
Thank you, noted. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I share the views of Councillor Gray. Actually, I think that's too many people on the strategic group. I welcome this review of the governance of Tumbledown. I think Tumbledown is a fantastic project. It's obviously been hindered, like most things, over the last 2 years with COVID. But the progress it has made, despite these obstacles, it's been fantastic. And it's really good to hear that local groups are benefiting from produce grown there, including those families that probably would struggle to buy fresh produce like that normally. And of course, all these sort of charity organisations and support organisations that are using the land to deliver their strategic goals. A little bit shocked to see this paper, though, come straight to this forum of the full council. I don't recall it coming to finance or governance or even services, and I think it would have been nicer. We could have resolved some of these number issues there had it come to probably one of the committees that would be overseeing these boards and groups first. But saying that, I don't want to cause any delay. I want to see Tumbledown continue to progress in the next 2 years under our administration, and look forward to somebody proposing this paper going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Weller.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. In that case, I'd like to propose that we reduce the number of the strategic group to 5, because I do think that more people, the more difficult it is to manage. I would like to add my congratulations of others to how this project has progressed. I have to say this is a project that was first mooted in the old Weymouth and Portland days and got nowhere. And Weymouth Town Council have progressed it very, very efficiently and very, very effectively, and to the benefit of our residents. So to all of those involved, and I have to say I've had minimal involvement as far as Weymouth Town Council is concerned. Perhaps I was the problem with Weymouth and Portland because I was heavily involved in that day, but I don't think I was. But congratulations to you all, and I'd like to propose that we get going. But I'd like agreement for everybody else that we reduce the numbers of the
Would that be
strategic
5 in total?
Yes.
Would you like to propose the split?
3 and 2.
3 councillors and 2 officers.
Yes.
2 and 3.
Oh, well, sorry, Howard, thank you.
Councillor Lamb, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the comments that have been made about Tumbledown. It is indeed an excellent project, which I've been heavily involved in throughout. Councillor Hope is quite right that I would have expected this to go through services. Indeed, when it was first brought up at the board meeting, it is minuted that we would expect it to go to Services Committee in July. And I've been rather concerned at the last 2 board meetings. I am a member of the board, and I've been concerned that I thought this has been really rushed through and was railroaded through. I have expressed my concerns over that in the board meetings. Whilst I agree that the board needs to be reviewed, and this is probably a good way forward, I would have liked to have seen it properly discussed. First of all, at the board meetings where we didn't have the relevant papers provided, I would have liked to have seen it gone to Services Committee and/or Finance and Governance, as we agreed in the board meeting. I don't quite understand why this is being rushed through so rapidly, because I would have liked to have seen opportunities for discussion and variations made, if necessary, in the lower committees. I accept that it is here. Say I'm not particularly happy about the procedure. In fact, I would go as far as to say that I am unhappy about the procedure. Although I support Tumble Down and will continue to support it, I will not be voting for this governance arrangement as shown here. Because I do not feel that we've had the opportunity to discuss this properly. Thank you.
Thank you, sorry, Councillor Roos.
Okay, I'm going to propose that this goes to Services Committee and that we vote for it to not be voted on today, but to be moved to Services Committee, which is on the 13th, is the next date we have, Services Committee meeting. Feedback, I do agree with Councillor Weller. From my experience of feedback from people working at Tumble Down in the charity groups that I work for, they have said they do an awful lot of work there. So I think having large amounts of officers and councillors is kind of a bit pointless when the land is there being used by these groups. They don't need monitoring by officers and councillors, they get on with their own thing. So, you know, I think being mindful of numbers is not a bad idea, but I want to propose that we move it to Services Committee and don't vote on it today.
Thank you. Councillor Milton.
I think Councillor Dickinson had his hand first.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, bear in mind the very great involvement of Councillor Lambs on this. I'm very concerned that he has these reservations. I think we should, Councillor Roos said, I think we should take account of that, because I would like to think that this has come forward with the support of particularly Councillor Lambs who's involved in this. So I'm trying to think, second that, yes.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Milton.
Yeah, I'd like to first off say that there's a lot of testimony coming forward from individuals who have been involved in one way or another at Tumble Down. And many of these people are on what you might term the margins of our society, about how this has really transformed their lives. And that's a really positive thing. And I look forward to Tumble Down increasing in terms of the number of people it serves, and that becoming a real centre for, we called it in one of the bids we made for funds, a centre for resilience. Because it's helping people deal with some of the complexities of life and giving them a new outlook and purpose. It's not just about growing food. Growing food is the vehicle that delivers this. There are other things going on this site as well. I could go on at length about why we might want certain numbers, but I agree, but let's talk about it in the services meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lane, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I didn't realise that this hadn't gone to services, although now I read it, it clearly, there's no evidence in here to say it has, so I should have realised that it hadn't. And that does concern to me a bit, that things are brought direct to us, which is not normally our procedure. There are exceptions to come direct to us, emergencies, urgency, deadlines set by other people, which we've done before, but there's no reason given in here why it's come direct to us. And you don't know what the committee will say unless you go to the committee to find out what they will say. And therefore, I agree with Councillor Lambert that this should be referred back to Services Committee. And I would like an assurance that that procedure will be always followed, because it's not the first time we've had this.
Thank you very much. Councillor, please.
David is okay.
Oh, sorry, David.
Yes, I'm not uncomfortable with it going to Services Committee at all, but I would like us to be able to delegate the Services Committee to take the decisions, so that we can get the decisions taken in July and therefore put into place for the next autumn season. So if we can agree that it goes to the services committee, with the services committee able to take the decisions necessary to set up the new governance structure.
I'd like to agree with Councillor Roos's suggestion of taking it to services. Part of this review purpose was to bring Tumbledown within the more formal structures and supervision of the council. As Councillor Weller mentioned, this was approved by the Borough Council 6 or 7 years ago. Nothing happened. With the Town Council, we managed to achieve a new dynamism, and the Tumbledown Board was started off to get it going. And in many ways, it's a bit freewheeling intentionally, because we wanted to be able to make decisions quickly with councillors and officers working hand in hand. And that structure has worked, but it's now outgrown that, and it needs. So the purpose of this is to bring it more in line with other committees, so it sits within a structure. Full council services, Tumbledown being one project. So the idea of going to services committee makes perfect sense. It's a problem of growth, really. We've grown to a certain extent. We've got Alan Chambers now, started a few weeks ago. We're just putting in what we call planning commission. So in many ways, these are the problems of success. We've had a friends group launched over the last few months, and we're trying to agree a date with Councillor Weaving to come and plant an oak tree and launch it. At that point, I hope to be able to invite many of you to a function after that, and then you can see it yourselves. But yeah, in summary, I agree with Councillor Roos. Should go to services.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question, really. Where is the recommendation or the suggestion come from to change the structure to what we see before us? Has it come from Tumbledown themselves, or is it from the town council itself? Or who's putting forward the suggestion that we set up this new structure?
So I took the suggestion in a short paper to the Tumbledown. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Project board, and it was discussed there and agreed to move forward through the committee structure. But I take on board the comments that the agreement was that it goes to services, so I'm totally supportive.
Councillor Lambert, please.
Sorry. A paper didn't appear, a discussion took place. That first meeting a month ago. At the meeting on Tuesday, we did not have access immediately to this document here, which is the only document I'm aware of that begins to spell out what's going on. This is the reason why I feel that we haven't had adequate discussion. And I feel Tumbledown is so important, as people have said, but I do want everyone to feel that the processes are transparent and that everyone is involved. Not all councillors, I'm sure, have had the opportunity to get up to Tumbledown and see the progress that's been made and the good work that is being done there and the good work that will be done there in the future. So I am keen that it goes through the proper procedures. And I thank Councillor Roos for proposing it. My reason for coming back is to spot the second motion.
Thank you. Would you like to answer that? No, it's not necessary.
Could I make a last remark, please, Chair? It's not just about getting more aware through reporting. It's also about getting the whole of the council and embedding Tumbledown as a normal working business activity of the council. That's a really important thing. It's on that basis that I fully support the move towards a project group and a operational group. I think it's the right time for us to change the governance and to move forward. I look forward to the discussion in services, which I'll attend. Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to move on to a vote if we can, Chair. And I understand that Councillor Roos made a proposal that was seconded by Councillor Nicholson to defer to services. Councillor Harris then, in part of that discussion, suggested an amendment to the proposal that already had a proposer and seconder to give services delegated authority to make the final discussion. I don't believe he's had a seconder, so I'm happy to second that amendment to the recommendation and take the opportunity as Chair of Services to invite all councillors and members of the public to the Services Committee on the 13th, where we will have this paper in discussion following on from this evening.
Still wish to speak, Councillor Turner?
Yeah, the Councillor Roos, if we're going to be connected about it, Councillor Roos proposed it, she didn't have a seconder, it went to Councillor Harris, who can then propose it as a recommendation to save us voting twice. Whatever it is, let's get to a vote. But let's just take one vote. Let's take one vote.
If I read the situation correctly, we've had nothing formally proposed and seconded.
That's right, exactly.
We did.
Self-proposed.
Councillor Roos
Oh.
proposed.
There was no
Second.
second.
Yeah.
Councillor Nicholson
That was in the
seconded.
debate, that wasn't following the proposal.
The words came for the proposal.
I hadn't realised there'd been a
I'll
seconder.
propose the
Just
words
withdraw it
that
and then
we've
put
already
count.
got.
Let's
I've
do
got no
it.
time for this.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yeah.
Could we just take the proposer and seconder at what's on the screen?
The
Full
phone, I'll
stop.
propose.
Okay, Councillor Roos and a seconder, Chair.
Councillor
Councillor
Hope,
Lambert.
Councillor
No,
Lambert.
All those in favour, please?
I make that unanimous, thank you.
Discussion anymore.
Yes.
The next item is the annual review of the corporate plan, and I'll hand over to Town Council.
Thank you. So this has been in front of Finance and Governance and also the TAG group, who have proposed no material changes to the corporate plan, save for an update. My apologies that at the time of agenda dispatch, you were sent the original copy of the corporate plan. I did send around today and it has been made available on our website, the refreshed corporate plan. It's just updated with dates, terminology, etc. And happy to take any questions or comments on the refreshed corporate plan if there are any, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Thurman.
How long do these, before another one comes forward?
Annual review, I propose, just to make sure that it stays fresh and relevant. So this time next year.
Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can we review the photographs?
Yes,
Because
if you let me know if there's a particular photograph.
it speaks here of creating thriving communities. So all the photographs refer to just two thriving communities, Weston and Falcon Regis. We've got the seafront on page 1. We have a collage of pictures, which is the harbour, Greenhill Gardens. We've got the Anzac Cemetery at Weston. I think that's the Marsh Play area. We've got the clock on page 3. And then on page 4, it says the diverse communities that we represent. Bookway Broadway, Littlemore, Crescent St. Paul's. And then we go to page 6, and then we're back to the seafront, George III's monument. I'm sure we can have a better photograph of that one, because that shows clearly all the sand coming off the beach. And then we have on page 7 a photograph of the electric vehicle, Parks and Gardens, fabulous. But it's on the island opposite the pavilion. And then if we go to page 8, we're back on the seafront again. There are no photographs north of the town. I know we are a town council, but we represent all sorts of different areas. And although the technical information inside may change slightly, I think we could update the photographs on an annual basis.
So at the time the annual plan was written, I did email all councillors and ask them to send me photographs of their areas. I've had a varied response. If councillors would like to send me photos that they feel are suitable for inclusion, I'm more than happy to review the photographs, but I would ask that you approve the text and maybe allow me to use a more informal mechanism to approve the photographs to save it having to come back to full council in September. But more than happy, please send me photographs from around the area, more than happy to include.
Thank you. Councillor Hope, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's very good of Councillor Brooks to recognise Westham and Malcolm Regis. We must be
The mighty Westham.
The mighty Westham and Malcolm Regis. You can join us in that, and I'm sure my ward members across the Western wards and Malcolm Regis would agree. No, joking aside, I think, as we mentioned previously, we're 3 years into administration here. This is a strategic plan we set to see us through the 5 years. I'm glad to see we're not changing direction, which means listening to the public and receiving their feedback, which would have given us a chance to change this. There is no need, and that we are on track to deliver what the people of Weymouth want. So happy to change a few photos afterwards, but the actual strategic view and the text, I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Councillor Wakeling, please.
Thank you. Jane pretty much said what I was going to suggest, but there are 29 of us. Let's every single one of us take a photo of something in your ward and send it to Jane. And then we would get representation of all the wards in town. This will save any officer time, and I think it's good for us to do. So I suggest every single member, please take a picture of what you consider your ward and send it in.
I'd like to say something. If I take a picture, there'll either be no heads or no feet. So
It's postmodern now, it's fine.
sorry.
It's postmodern.
Oh right.
That's it at the moment.
We can draw them in. Thank you. Yes. Councillor Furman.
But just add on to Luke's, you could even save us some time and just let the public put in their pictures.
Oh, yeah.
We haven't actually got, we haven't actually got any people of the community, you know, and with permissions and things like that. Yeah, but you could get that, that's fine, you know, but let's actually have some of the community in there. And as well, that will drive interest in the corporate plan, you know, because it's, to quote my learned doctor friend over there, Luke Wakeling, it is dry. These things can be dry, and anything we can do to generate public interest and engagement in a document should be good.
Thank you.
I'll have a word with Charlie and see about some of our events.
Thank
We
you.
should have some good shots from veterans at the weekend. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, the recommendation that we agree any amendments to the corporate plan. So can we
I
have
would
a?
suggest that
I did propose.
Yes, he did.
to propose to accept the plan
Yes.
with the addition of some additional photos.
Yes.
Additional.
Second.
Right, so could we have a show of hands, please?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Chair, the brakes not on.
You don't say that coming in car.
That is unanimous, thank you, Chair.
Yes. And item 15, sealing of the deed of grant from Wessex Water. And I'd like to ask Charmaine to speak on that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Members, as per the report in front of you, we've been approached by Moorish Homes to have recently completed development of Miles Gardens. Wessex wards require access over a Weymouth Town Council footpath. As the footpath is not adopted, Weymouth Town Council have been asked to give their consent in the deed. It's been recommended that council agree to seal the deed of grant.
To respond to any questions anyone may have, Chair.
Yes, do we have any questions, please?
The only question I have now is that we're getting compensation for legal costs. Are they actually what we did incur, or if we incur something different and that's just,
They cover legal costs.
so we're not paying anything?
Oh,
Thank
shall
you.
I? So could I have a proposal? Oh, sorry, councillor Weld.
Just following on for that, are they paying anything for the crossing? And have they agreed for the adequate reinstatement of the footpath once they're crossed? Because, you know, historically, these footpaths are never quite the same after they've been dug up.
The reinstatement costs and everything associated with the reinstatement is part of the agreement, and the £672 is more than enough for the legal costs.
And no easement on it? No, okay.
Thank you. Oh, yes,
So
sorry,
there's
councillor Brooks.
No, I just
shareholders
wanted
need the
to
money.
recommend, I just wanted to propose a
Fine,
recommendation.
thank you. Have we a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Furman, show of hands, please.
I'll make that unanimous, Chair, thank you.
Water flush coming. Water flush coming, everything's unanimous.
Yeah, what
Oh,
on
God.
earth is going on? Oh, no, it's scary, isn't it? Right. Information items, and I'll hand over to town clerk, please.
Thank you. Members will recall at the last full council meeting when I reported on a code of conduct complaint that had been lodged with Dorset Council regarding a town councillor. I would, as per detailed in standing orders, however, I do accept that the governance working group may be looking at the wording of those standing orders in future, but currently I am duty bound to report to you as per those standing orders. I was asked to produce a report on code of conduct complaints that had been received by Dorset Council since the council launched on the 1st of April 2019. You have that detail in front of you. Through going through this work with Dorset Council, both Dorset Council officers and I uncovered some areas for improvement to make sure that we get all the information we need to comply with standing orders and the legal requirement when code of conduct complaints are upheld. So thank you to, I've forgotten, I think it might have been Councillor Dickinson who requested this information. No. Somebody requested this information, and my thanks, because it enabled us to take a bit of a deep dive on the process we have with Dorset Council and improve our lines of communication. So you have those details in front of you. It is only an information item, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, councillor.
Thank you very much. You refer in two cases to a councillor being advised to apologise. Do you happen to know if in either one or both those cases apologies were given?
As far as I'm aware, both apologies were given, yes.
Thank you. Move on.
Moving on to actions from the last meetings. Some of these go back some way. There again, just to update you, some things are still ongoing. We are looking to tick off as many of these as we can as possible, as quickly as possible. For instance, the ferry action from the 24th of the 6th, 2020 has now completed. So we'll update that for the next report. And the two that are completed is regarding parking machine issues. So I have a response from Dorset Council that will be included in the roundup, but suffice to say they are aware of the issues. There are some issues with the app on particularly busy days when the app can get overloaded, but these are apparently few and far between. There are a number of issues with the ticket machines on Dorset Council car parks. Additional staff members are being trained up to resolve some of the more common issues, but Dorset Council have also placed an order for replacement ticket machines and are increasing that as much and as quickly as they can. Replacement machines will be spread across the area, but Weymouth is being made a priority because we have the summer season coming up. And there is an update in the report on the Boot Hill monitoring station, which will come back in due course when I have some more information. So happy to move on unless there are any questions on any of the actions.
Yes, Councillor Hutton, please.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Town Clerk. For item 1, I parked at North Quay car park today for 2 hours, and the fee on the board said £2.50. Using the app, I pay £1.50. So Dorset Council, they're hard up. They seem to be losing 90 days at the beginning.
Don't tell them.
But I would encourage anyone, including the public who may be watching, if there are issues with the parking machines or the app, please do let Dorset Council know so that they can gather the intelligence on where they need to direct their efforts and their staffing.
Councillor Watt, please.
Do we know the latest in the saga of the park and ride? Somebody's telling me it's not going to operate. The bus company refused to go in there. And then somebody else is telling me that They are going in there.
Excuse me, as I sketch the number 2 all the time, it goes down the pipe and picks up at the Park and Ride bus stop on every journey to and from the
In
town.
the Park and Ride itself.
No, it never has done.
Sorry, Chair, if I may, this item isn't on the agenda, but I'm happy to go away and find out what I can.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Norman, please.
I did write to Dorset Council recently. Would you like me to share their response? Would you like
Up to you, Chair, if you wish to take.
Yes, is it a long one or?
No.
Oh, that's all right.
I had a response from Owen Clark, who said they were considering submitting a levelling up fund transport bid to resurrect the Park and Ride as an electric transport hub. There were other details.
Thank you very much.
I was considering.
Councillor Harris.
Can I just go back to an action from the last meeting, and it's the second action in your table. It says complete DCN not reinstating the old monitoring station. This may be at Boot Hill. What did happen?
It hasn't been put in yet. That's still it may be, they haven't made a decision.
Okay.
So I'm happy to report back as I get more information on that, but I didn't want it sitting there for months and months and months.
Thank you.
Sorry, is the action now complete?
So purely on whether the specific question there was, is it being replaced? And the answer is no. However, there might be a trial of a different sort of equipment, so I will keep you informed. But the answer to the question was, is the monitoring equipment being replaced at Boot Hill? No.
Do we know if that's a legal requirement? Yeah, that's the question I have. My limited understanding of this is it's a legal requirement to have some sort of monitoring. And if it's not been working for some time, then shouldn't we be saying, well, get on with it?
Yes. There are monitoring stations in other areas of
Right.
Weymouth, but there is nothing that says you have to have one on Boot Hill.
Right.
It's just that Boot Hill is a bit of an own air quality issue area.
Right.
So
It's not-
traditionally there was one there, but they're not planning on replacing that.
Right, so thank you.
It's the most polluted area.
Yes. Doesn't make sense, does it?
That doesn't show on measuring.
Oh, I suppose it does if you're.
True, isn't it?
Makes sense.
Maybe it might be that one of the Dorset councillors would like to take that up with Dorset.
Oh, yes,
Council feedback,
please.
or one of the local, I'm not sure whose area it's.
It's
Boot Hill.
Oh, is it a big
Kate.
Kate, do you want to take it, please?
Thank you. Right. So now we've got
Yeah, so the
to
next section
exclusion.
of the next section on the information items is the formal plan. As always, this is not definitive and is subject to regular change, including the addition of tumble-down governance on the next services, which members will note is on the list for the 6th of July for the by-election. So on the agreement with the Chair of Services, Councillor Hope, that meeting will now be held on the 13th. Just to allow us to avoid any PERDA issues and to allow those councillors who may be out canvassing the night before the election to go out and canvass. So then that does bring us on to item 17.
Yes. So now we need to ask members of the public, please, and press to
Well,
leave the room.
you need a proposer to exclude.
Oh, all right, then,
A
yes.
proposer, seconder, and then a vote.
Yes. Proposer to exclude.
Councillor Frost.
Frost. Yes. Councillor Grace. And show of hands, please, show of hands.
So that's 1, 2, 3, no, 2. So I have 21 for.
And against?
2.
Any abstentions?
So that is 20. Sorry, I counted you as in the 21. 24, 2 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.